Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alayna wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. Welcome.
Thank you. This week we are continuing our discussion on comparisons of belief and unbelief. We talked about last week. We talked about that we are connected to the past, future, and with the universe too, and we either get pleasure or we feel fear from them. And we talked about past, future, sky, earth, and we are continuing. Our speakers are Colin Turner from UK and Nejat Aydin from United States, from Connecticut. Today we will talk about the front aspect and the back aspect. Inshallah, first I will read through. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. On the phrase Alhamdulillah, so we are talking about how belief makes us say, makes us give thanks to past, when we look at the past, future, and the universe. Inshallah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Front aspect. If a person who indulges in philosophy looks at this aspect, he sees that all living creatures, whether human or animal, are disappearing group by group and with the great speed towards it. That is to say, they are going to non-being and ceasing to exist. Since he knows that he too is a traveler on that road, he goes out of his mind with grief. But for a believer, looking with the eye of belief, men journeying to that aspect are not passing to the world of non-existence. They are being transferred from one pasture to another like nomads, and migrating from a transitory realm to an everlasting one, and from a farm of service and labor to the wages office, and from a country of hardship and difficulty to one of plenty and ease. The believer meets this aspect with pleasure and gratitude. Difficulties which occur on the road, like death and the grave, are sources of happiness by reason of their results. For the road which leads to the luminous world passes through the grave, and the greatest happiness is the result of the worst, most grievous disasters. For example, Yusuf alayhi salam, attained the happiness of being ruler of Egypt only by way of being thrown into the well by his brothers and cast into prison at the slanders of Zulaykha. In the same way, a child coming into the world from his mother's womb only reaches the happiness of this world as a result of the excruciating, crushing difficulties he experiences on the way.
We've lost the text, by the way.
Okay, I guess now it's back. It stopped screen sharing for a moment. Okay, now. In the same way, a child coming into the world from his mother's womb only reaches the happiness of this world as a result of the excruciating, crushing difficulties he experiences on the way. So there are, I guess, two parts here in the front aspect. In the first, he sees that all living creatures, whether human or animal, are disappearing group by group and with the great speed towards it. That is to say, they are going to non-being and ceasing to exist. Since he knows that he too is a traveler on that road, he goes out of his mind with grief. Inshallah, Colin hocam, inshallah we can start with you. Any comments on this?
The front aspect I'm assuming here is the future.
Future.
Is that correct? Because he's seeing that all living creatures are disappearing group by group. They're dying, in other words. They are moving away from this realm, and the future is viewed by us in accordance with our interpretive position. We've talked about having an interpretive position towards creation. We read creation, we read the book of creation in accordance with the lens of our own subjective understanding, or with the understanding of revelation. We've said that there are only two. The objective understanding, the objective lens, is the lens of reality, the lens of revelation, supported by human reason. But the subjective interpretive position is a position which is taken in accordance with one's own reason, unsupported by revelation. So you understand the future in the way that you understand the world. You understand the future in the way that you understand the universe generally. And that is basically, it is devoid of wise purpose. And it has no telos, it has no overall objective or aim. And so death really is the door to non-existence and everlasting annihilation. And this is what makes us go out of our mind with grief. When we consider that we also are destined for the same fate. We are travelers on the road towards non-being. And that is the cause of endless angst, endless existential anxiety. And it's this death anxiety, it's this mortality salience, it's this understanding our fate which drives human culture. So we live in a death-denying culture, and we live in a culture that sublimates its need for the everlasting and its need for the hereafter into various different projects which aim to create heaven on earth. Since that need for the hereafter, that need for everlasting life is within all of us, even if we're unbelievers, even if we are taking this subjective interpretive position towards the creation, we still are driven and hardwired by our need for the hereafter, our need for immortality. And that is what we sublimate that need and that desire into this worldly projects which we locate in this world. And those projects are always doomed to failure because of the way that they are misconceived. We try to create heaven on earth because we desire heaven on earth, but earth is not the place for heaven to be established here. And that's why we always fail. But we do that in order to escape this crushing grief that we experience when we contemplate our future. And it's a future that's devoid of hope. It's a future that's full of despair. So he's absolutely right. Since he knows too that he is a traveler on that road, he goes out of his mind with grief.
Yeah, no one can deny that we are connected to future, right? And if it's devoid of hope, and if we have no hope of the future, we will get the pain at the moment, right now. And here our need for immortality, and we need it. And if if there's nothing to fulfill that need, here it says, since he knows that he's going to non-existence, he goes out of his mind with grief. And as you said, we are living in a death-denying culture. Necat Hocam, I think we also talked about it yesterday too.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting from this is, so first of all, we really need to have a good understanding of human life and how we differ from animals. So here is saying that you're not like animal living in a moment, in the present time, so you live in the future. Actually, there are some philosophers says that we almost always live in the future. You know, the moment you arrive now, that you think about the next moment. So it's really human is very, you know, future looking and future thinking creatures. It's an amazing thing. You can avoid thinking about future. So in this regard, is here is, I think the front aspect is first of all talking about this, you know, aspect of human nature, that you think about the future, you worry about the future, you hope about the future. So you live in the future more than in the present time. And indeed, you know, you have difficulty to live in the present time because you're too much occupied for the future. What's going to happen? What's going to happen next moment, next day, next year? So this is really interesting, because if this is the fact, that means we have to really take this into consideration and try to address this human need. Now, when, let's say in economics, when it talks about human needs, we never talks about this aspect of human needs. It's not, that is not subject for economics. Why? Because again, basically we are in complete denial. But while it is a real concern for every single human being, what is going to happen to me tomorrow, next day, in the future? And in this regard, I think that it's very hard to actually justify logically the denial of that, because you know, I think if we logically think about that, nothing perhaps more certain than that, because it's for sure it's going to happen, because we see everyone, all living being experience that. And now we know in physics that actually all beings experience that. It's not only living being. So therefore, I think when Nursi had interpretation of kullu nafsun za'iqatul maut, he did not limit that to even living beings. He says all creation, you know, somehow will taste death. So if that is undeniable, absolute fact, that we're all going to experience, then how can we live in denial? And I think, I remember first I heard from Colin Hoja, then I read it, that books in Anna Spaker's The Denial of That. I think it's a really amazing book that describing how we live in a culture of constant denial of this absolute fact, and absolutely certain fact. So if that is fact, and if the design for eternity is the need for every human being, so then in that case, we cannot really, you know, when we, let's say, talks about the fulfillment of human needs, or talk about happiness of human being, we cannot be in denial of this fact. So in this regard, it seems like, you know, sometimes that you get this question, that what is really the value or the benefit of Iman? What do you gain as a human being in this world if you believe in God? So it depends on how you define your nature and your need. If your need is only, let's say, you think the food and car and sheltering, that you don't really get, you know, let's say, car because you believe in God, or you don't get, let's say, a bigger house because you believe in God, but you gain something that fulfill your needs, perhaps is more important than any other needs, which is that you live in the future and you have anxiety toward that. And when you believe in God, that your perception of the future will be completely different. So you look at the future differently. And that perception, depending on the level of, again, your iman about the future, gives you and fulfill your essential needs and a major need, and let you to actually enjoy your life in this world. To the level, I will say, it's way more valuable than any other, you know, possession that you might have, it that you think it might contribute to your happiness. So in this case, the answer, do we really gain anything by believing in God in this world? And I think we gain. We gain something that's more valuable than everything else in terms of, I think, the world they belong in. It seems like when you reflect on the front aspect here, you know, what really we gain as a believer, in regard to our nature, in regard to being connected to the future, and then to understand that, you know, so basically there is no death, there's no destruction, there's no disappearance. It's just a change of location, a change of, you know, residency. So you move from one place to another place. So and that's perception. And if we believe in it, which means depends on really how certain we are in such thing. Is it just wishful thinking that we're not going to disappear or we're not going to decay, we're going to go to another place better than this world? Or is it really a verified belief that we truly believe we're going to a better place? If it is the second one, I think that the belief give us something that we cannot get from any other worldly possession and position. So that's what I think. I got it from this part of the first aspect.
Thank you. Yeah, since we are talking about future, and I like, when you said you cannot avoid thinking about the future, right? We live in the future, so our pleasure or pains are dependent on that too, like the future. How do we see it? But unfortunately, the culture that we live in, we mentioned it, like we deny death as if it's so bad, and we are denying it, right? The place that we are going after death. But in the Quran, we see the verse "Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut." Everyone will taste death, and this is even though it's the absolute reality, we tend to deny it. Also, I see comments. The participants, you can write your comments or questions in the chat. And I want to read this part too. Nejat Hocam mentions.
Let me add one more thing. Really, I think it's remind me, if you allow me. I many years ago in Florida, I think it was in Gainesville or Jacksonville, there is a prison for those who are on death row. So, and I actually went there and spent the whole day with those prisoners, talked to them, and some of them were just on the very final stage. And I was really, really, shocked or surprised that those prisoners, they became like a lawyer. They, the way they try to really make their case and defend their case to just avoid execution, even if when they had very, very, very little hope, and in a case that they were just waiting for, let's say, final hearing from the Supreme Court, still they were hopeful. They were still fighting for that. So in a sense, that now the question is this, that if there is no God, and basically it means that we all are on that show. We all are waiting for execution. And saying that, just you're fine, ignore it, don't really look at for any lawyer or don't defend yourself, it just doesn't make sense. Then now if you find, when you are waiting for your execution, if you find someone, a lawyer can really, almost, let's say 99% likely it's going to, save you from the execution, that will be, more important than everything else. So therefore, I think the first aspect is saying, look, that belief is basically a way of being saved from execution. And if you don't have belief, you are going to be executed because you're going to die. And there's no science, no technology going to prevent that. Now, are you okay with that? If you say I'm okay because everyone's going to be executed, I mean, that's fine. But Nursi argues that will not be acceptable to your soul, because you cannot enjoy even this present moment when you think about being executed and not having the future at all. So that's, I think, and that's again clearly emphasize that what you will gain when you have the belief in God and in the hereafter, and how it will affect your worldly life and worldly enjoyment.
Thank you. On the other hand, this is how unbelief shows us. But for a believer, it says, but for a believer looking with the eye of belief, men journeying to that aspect are not passing to the world of non-existence. They are being transferred from one posture to another like nomads. As you said, Nejat Hocam, it's not, we are not going to non-existence, but being transported from one pasture to another, like nomads, and migrating from a transitory realm to an everlasting one, and from a farm of service and labor to the wages office, and from a country of hardship and difficulty to one of plenty and ease. The believer meets this aspect with pleasure and gratitude. And as you said, it should not be like a wishful thinking. I took one course when I was doing my master's on death, and everyone was talking about death and everyone was presenting about death, but it was more like, as you said, it was like wishful thinking, about the death to avoid. But we should have verified belief that this is the reality, right? Migrating from a transitory realm to an everlasting one. It's more like a journey than death. Yes, Colin Hocam, any comments on this?
The believer sees death through, again, that particular interpretive position, which is comes from the source of revelation, and therefore whatever we understand about death is first a mixture of what reason tells us, and reason tells us that just as we came from the womb and we entered this world, then this world is analogous to the womb and will deliver us into another world. So when we combine not so much wishful thinking, but the desire that we have for eternal existence, we are able to rationalize within our own framework that this cannot be the end, because Ustad Nursi is telling us all the time to take our cue from creation. Look at creation. Creation tells us about resurrection all the time. And if we go back to our old favorite, the cherry tree, you see that the cherry tree, each of the fruits of the cherry tree, when it comes to fruition, has a little stone. And that little stone has in it encoded the future life of the coming cherry, of the future cherry, and of the future tree. So encoded into that system, encoded into that stone, is the whole future of that organism. And so when that cherry dies and when the stone falls into the ground, it will in future be resurrected. So we see examples of mini resurrection. We see examples of future life all the time. And every spring we see maybe millions of examples of mini resurrection. We see it in our own self. We've said before, we see it in our own selves every single morning. The night before we metaphorically die, our bodies shut down. We turn off the light, we go under a sheet in a kind of performance of death, actually, a performance of burial. So it's a metaphorical burial which ends in the morning with a metaphorical resurrection. So we can't say that we're not surrounded by examples of afterlife, examples of resurrection, examples of life after death. And those, if you say those natural theological signs, are supported by revelation. So when we are able to look through the spectacles of personal experience, the experiential lens of living in the world, and through the spectacles of revelation, then the future doesn't really hold any fears for us. There is a note in the chat. It's from Nebi, and he's saying that from out of the 6 aspects, left was the future. So the left aspect was the future. And we're considering the front aspect to be the future. Maybe there is a difference. He's saying, is there anyone who can explain the difference between the left aspect that Ustad Nursi talks about at the opening of the treatise and the front aspect? My suggestion would be that this front aspect is death. It's still the future, but it's death.
You mean front aspect?
Yeah, we're talking now about
death.
The front aspect, aren't we?
Which is the difference. You said it's death, right?
Well, at the beginning of the stream, I suggested that the front aspect was future, but we've already looked at the future when we looked at when we looked at the left aspect. if you recall, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the question in chat is, if we've already looked at the left aspect, which was the future, how can this also be the future? How can this front aspect be the future? You see?
Yes. And you said it's death, right? The difference is that.
Well, I'm assuming from what Nursi is saying that it's death.
Also, Kolunjam, perhaps we can again look at this is from more like human perspective, in which that maybe, you know, when you look at it, you can see what is my future when it thinks on that one. That's maybe, you know, the strong's might refer to that in terms of what is inevitable future for you, and you know, in case of iman or a belief or disbelief. So it is still, but again, you look from you know, within the future perhaps, but the futures that concern you most as a human being. That's kind of I see, and therefore he put a special emphasis on that part, because that is, when you really look at it, that's your special particular concern.
Yeah, maybe what he means is my fate. You know, what is my goal? What is my end? What will my end be? Which is part of our future, clearly. It's not just the future. It's not the whole of the future, but it's my, as you say, my particular perspective. From my particular perspective, I'm talking about, you know, what will my fate be?
And featured from different aspects too. Here, if you have other comments on this too, like the difficulties that we see, not just death, but other difficulties that we face in this world, are the results. The greatest happiness is the result of the worst and most grievous disasters in this world. Yeah, in this front aspect, we see different faces too than the left aspect.
I can't remember the left aspect. That's the problem. I'm just looking through the book to see if I can find any particular indication as to what it can mean.
And maybe he writes, if the front is death, then the back aspect is the birth, like coming into the world. And inshallah, we will talk about it from the back aspect too. And we will talk about, you know, where did we come from actually?
Right. Okay. So that must be it then. Yeah. So that, yes, then the front must be death in particular, and the rear aspect, I think it means not rare but rear.
And I see, and also like in the front aspect, it's the death of everything, like from a bigger perspective, maybe.
Yes.
The death of all living beings. And also you mentioned the death of seeds, for example. And yeah, when the world, the earth is like a womb to them, right? It's like they come out of that, and their death, the death of seeds, is actually not death. It's the start of their new, better life. And also I want to read this part again, inshallah, and take your comments. The difficulties which occur on the road to like death and the grave are sources of happiness by reason of their results. For the road which leads to the luminous worlds passes through the grave, and the greatest happiness is the result of the worst, most grievous disasters. For example, Yusuf alayhi salam, Joseph, attained the happiness of being ruler of Egypt only by way of being thrown into the well by his brothers and cast into prison at the slanders of Suleikha. In the same way, a child coming into the world from his mother's womb only reaches the happiness of this world as a result of the excruciating, crushing difficulties he experiences on the way. So this is the happiness, all the greatest happiness is the result of difficulties. Any comments on this? Necat Hocam?
I think this is a famous principles of no pain, no gain. So in a sense that is not only that, is basically saying that as long as you see more pain, more gain, because that's what it says, that the pain is not pain anymore. Because when you think about the, let's say you're a poor person, and what happened, and you're told that there is a treasure buried under your backyard, and but it's a little bit deep down. You have to work 2 hours, 3 hours, but it is really huge treasure. It's like $1 billion, its value. So yeah, you 2-3 hours, you're gonna work hard, but if you really believe there's treasure there, and the pain you go through is no pain at all, because the gain you have it justify any pain that you will get it, because like 2 hours pain gets, let's say, $1 billion treasure. There's no pain at all. It's actually is a great pleasure for anyone, particularly anyone who is poor. If they know that, they will see this as a great blessing. So that's why I think it's saying that so it is for believer. It's just the pain and the difficulty and the hardship you go through. They all are for purpose. They all are eventually there to help you to flourish, to unleash your potential, to be a better human being. Because the entire life experience is basically is a flourishment. And it seems like, flourishment, it is like a law, does require certain, hardship, certain pain. And that pain and hardship, as long as you really, you recognize or realize that the gain, you will have it, will be nothing for you. But if that's why I say it's basically, my understanding is that in life, you have to choose between the two pains: pain with no gain, and pain with gain. So it's your choice, whatever you want to choose. So in one way is that, and I argue that, even if you say, let's say you say, I'm going to just, sit down and not doing anything. Okay. Why? Because working hard is a pain. Fine, but sitting down gonna give you boredom. That's pain too. And what is the gain of sitting down and being lazy? Nothing. So then you choose pain with no gain. But let's say you're really a hardworking person and you go and work very hard, and that is pain. You wake up early and you work hard, but you work for certain gain, and then you are sure you're going to get it, what you aim for it. Then I think that will be a very good choice. So here it says, saying that basically for believer, that whatever pain that you go through, it will have eternal gain. And for non-believer, whatever pain you go through will give you absolutely nothing. And therefore nihilism will say, because you might say, oh, I gained this, I gained, a degree, I gained possession, but all of them are doomed to die. All of them are doomed to be, thrown into the garbage, including your own body, your own name, your own fame, and everything. It's just a matter of time before it's all, go to the garbage. Because if there's no that, and there's no life after that, and all of them will be useless eventually. And I think those intelligent guys like Nietzsche, when they identify that you cannot avoid nihilism, I think they are right. Is ultimately, what are you gaining in life? Is absolutely nothing if there is no God and no hereafter. Now the question in this case is, what is the purpose? What is the point of really going through all this hardship? So therefore, I think, and that's what I understand here. So in saying that, you just, the way you look at the life event will be different as well once you look through the light of belief.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Necat Hocam. It's a different perspective. We said that the greatest happiness is the result of, difficulties and pains. But when you look at it like this, pain is not pain, as you said. And since, after this pain, you see eternal gain right after it. So it's not pain anymore. And also in the beginning of the session, you said we live in the future. So whatever pain we go through right now, since we always think about the future and we get pleasure from that, so it's not pain. And on the other hand, for the unbelievers who, you know, deny the existence of next world, their gains give them pain, right? Since they will lose all the gains, like all the pleasures they have right now. It's exactly opposite. Thank you. Yes, Colin Hocam, any comments on this?
Not really. Nothing to add to it.
Inshallah, then we can read the back aspect too, inshallah. Back aspect, that is, since one who looks at those who have remained behind with the view of philosophy can find no answer to the question, where have they come from, and where are they going, and why did they come to the land of this world? He naturally remains in a torment of bewilderment and doubt. But should he look through the spectacles of belief, he will understand that humans are observers, sent by the pre-eternal sovereign to contemplate and study the wonderful miracles of power displayed in the exhibition of the universe, and that after receiving their marks and ranks in conformity with the degree they have grasped the value and grandeur of those miracles of power, and the degree to which the miracles point to the grandeur of the pre-eternal sovereign, man will return to the sovereign's realm. So he will say, all praise be to God, Alhamdulillah, for the bounty of belief, which has given him this bounty. And since the praise offered in saying, all praise be to God, Alhamdulillah, for the bounty of belief, which thus banishes the above-mentioned layers of darkness, is also bounty, praise should be offered for it too. And praise should be offered a third time for the second bounty of praise, and a fourth time for the third bounty of praise. That is to say, an infinite chain of praise is born of a single uttering of the phrase, all praise be to God, Alhamdulillah. So these are the important questions. Colin Hocam.
I'm not sure I understand what he means here. He says, that is, since one who looks at those who have remained behind with the view of philosophy. So if you're looking with the view of philosophy at those who have remained behind, we can find no answer to the question, where have they come from and where are they going? And why did they come to the land of this world? What does he mean by those who've remained behind?
Since we talked about the future, like this is like the past, who are coming to this world, I guess, this world.
Where have they come from?
Yeah.
Nebi is raising his hand. He may be able to throw a lot of light on this since he's been explaining things in the chat.
İnşallah. Nebi Hocam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Aleykümselam.
I'm not able to explain all the things, but what I understand, I will try to share, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Yeah, now we are living. If Colin Jam says that the front side is the death, then it comes to me, okay. Then if we are living now, some of the people, some of the new births are also happening. That means that some newcomers are on the way to come here to the world. Those ones are that is the backside. You know? That's my understanding. That's the backside. Now there is death in front of us. Everybody is threatened with this death, but how do we see death? I think this is one of the most important things just in front of us. and everybody faces with this death, then how we consider it, how we evaluate it, how we understand the death. I think this is very important. As you have stated, from one aspect, that is a new beginning, actually. There was a small story, most of you may know about this. There were twins in the womb of a lady, and they were trying to understand where they are. One was saying that how compassionate our mother is. The other one was saying that I do not see any mother. I have difficulty to believe in if I do not see. Even though their mother was surrounding them. Later on, they recognized the umbilical cord connecting them to their mother. Then all foodstuff is flowing through that umbilical cord, and there must be someone on the other side. Then that one is called mother. Then both of them were convinced about the existence of the mother. But later on, they were also still going on to questioning. We are very happy here. We live very nice life here. If we leave that place in the future, or in any case, will life go on? They were questioning to this. If we leave that place, if we leave the womb, will life go on? And they were trying to understand from their perspective to this question. They were saying that the source of the life is the umbilical cord. If they leave that place, that cord will be broken. Then how does life go on? It's impossible according to their evaluation, their experience. And they were also saying that before us, there were some others, elder brothers and sisters who are living also here. They left that place, but nobody's returning back. Therefore, they had difficulty to believe in when they leave that place, whether life goes on or not. But their limbs and their also organs also showing that there must be some other place. Since they have eyes, they do not use their eyes in the womb. They have ears, they have mouth, they have legs, they have foot, but they do not use those organs while they were in the womb. When 9 months is over, an earthquake happened, then one has gone, left that place. The one still inside, he was saying that, oh, my brother or sister passed away. He died, finished everything for him. When he also asked, do you want to go together with him? No, I am very happy here. I do not want to go out. I want to live here forever. But he cannot, since, while he was saying that my brother died, there were some others. They were also saying that one baby was born. The same phenomena, the one still inside was describing it as a death, but the ones living in that world were describing the same phenomena as birth. Then the death and the birth is a relative thing. From which reference point you are looking? After a certain time, in a few minutes, he has gone too. But when they opened their eyes, they have found themselves in an unimaginable world. And they started to cry due to happiness.
MashaAllah, Nigabi, it's a beautiful way of explaining both, I guess, the front and back aspect. MashaAllah, I heard it before, but you explained it better, inshallah, clearer.
Yeah, when the baby was in, if he has intelligence, if we ask about how is life while you are in the womb, I think they are so happy with the condition of the life there, but they cannot imagine such a big world while they were living in a very limited space. They were living in a dark place. They were living in the liquid. And if we mention about them, there are watermelon, there is melon, there are so many fruits. Then there is United States, there is Turkey, there is sun, there is moon, there are stars. How can they imagine such a big world while they were living in the womb?
Right. Also, I liked when you said the cord, right? It was their source of life, and they said, how can we live? How can there be life without that cord, right? But actually, it is possible, Yana. It is reality. Jazakallah. Inshallah. And how can we apply this to, where have they come from? Where are they going? Like, these are the pressing questions that we face in this world. Nejat Hocam, any comments on this back aspect?
Again, I think the way I got it from this back aspect is, that's again, since we're related to the past and the future. So what I got it from the back aspect is mainly, we try, when you when you reflect on the past and try to, see what happened and why this happened. So you ask those existential questions: where did they come from, and and what happened? Why did they disappear? So, and it seems like the back aspect is somehow enlightening the past, in which that you see there were people coming and leaving and disappearing and going. So you somehow, I think, when through the light of faith, that you can enlighten them and see the meaning within their life, and they're coming and they're fulfilling their jobs, fulfilling their task, and then leaving in that way. So it's like, the way I see it is basically reading the past in terms of the past, particularly here's past human history, and as an ayah as well, that something happened in the past, and then you're looking now, and it's not like just an historical event and happen, and you can take it lessons in terms of really how you can do better politically. It's not that way. So you look at those as a meaningful revelation as well. There are lessons for you, and they all came and with certain with certain life journey. So you can read their life journey and their experience as well as a meaningful manuscript. That's what I think I kind of get it from this back aspect, because here you're asking, where have they come from and where are they going? Why did they come to the land of this world? So when you ask this question, so you're basically asking, about their life, about their journey, about their experience. What was the purpose? Why they did what they did? Why all these things happened to them? What can I learn from it? Is there any things that basically, can be learned and can help me and guide me? So that's, I think, how you will look at, because since you're linked to the history, since you can't just ignore the history and live the present time, and that's, in this case, Iman will enlighten the past and make you to be connected and to benefit from the past. That's what I get it. I don't know.
Yes, also here we see the other aspects too, like in this back aspect, how different phases, how we interpret, how we explain the universe. This, I don't know if I should read it again. I believe we should talk about this too, like these slides. But should he look through the spectacles of belief, he will understand that humans are observers sent by the pre-eternal sovereign. I believe like we can talk about each phrase here. Sent by the pre-eternal sovereign to contemplate and study the wonderful miracles of power displayed in the exhibition of the universe. And that after receiving their marks and ranks in conformity with the degree They have grasped the value and the grandeur of those miracles of power and the degree to which the miracles point to the grandeur of the pre-eternal sovereign. Man will return to the sovereign's realm. So he will say, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God for the bounty of belief, which has given him this bounty. Alhamdulillah.
So this Alhamdulillah
Yes.
is for, I assume, is for perception of the back aspect. So is your understanding of the history in this way. So in a sense that, let's say, if you read the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam in Quran, we don't look at this as just an historical event or what happened, you know, how did he fight with his people and manage to, you know, guide them. You don't look at this way alone. You look at this as you know, and look at the, let's say, the trees and skies. You look at it as an eye, which means that those story has a direct message for us. It's meaningful life experience of those individuals. That the question is, how can I read that, and how can I drive lessons? And here, I think when it says Alhamdulillah, is the Alhamdulillah is basically the perception through which that you get such pleasant, meaningful lessons when you reflect on it. So you don't just, again, let's say you might read it a sad story, let's say story of Ayyub alayhi salam. So you don't read it and just cry for Ayyub alayhi salam. You read it to derive lessons, to read it as a meaningful, you know, experience, to see how you can actually, you know, relate to that story, because that is a revelation as well to you, in which that you're asked to really reflect and learn lessons, to read it like ayah. So therefore, I think that is, in this case, what I'm seeing here. So basically saying, you know, if you can look at through the light of Iman, that wherever you look at it, and whatever knowledge that you gain, can all lead you to God, can all lead you to a good outcome. And that's why you will say Alhamdulillah. I think that is, in this case, that is the praise or the thanks is for this gain through such perception.
Yes, being able to see those signs, inshallah. Thank you. Colin Hocam?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at the front aspect as death, then if we look behind us conceptually, we're looking at birth and beginning, and how do we understand the universe? Why does the universe exist? Why do human beings exist? Where did it all come from? So this is to do with, you know, how we understand our you know, cosmogony. Where does everything come from? And again, that has to be looked at through the spectacles of revelation, aided by reason, in order to make any sense, because otherwise it's impossible to come to a cogent and logical conclusion, because everything begins, apparently, for those who look at the past through the eyes of philosophy, in other words, the eyes of reason unaided by revelation. They don't know how things came into being, but they conjecture that it began with some kind of event, and that event was a chaotic explosion out of which, through the mediation of accident and luck and chance, beings came into existence, but for no particular purpose, because the whole process was devoid of wise purpose, and it was devoid of ultimate telos. So we don't know, we can't know anything with certainty, but apparently science tends to support our conjecture that things may have come into existence around 16 billion years ago with this, you know, incredible, beyond belief event of order out of chaos. And naturally, that leaves us in this, what Nursi calls a torment of bewilderment and doubt, because that is what is their view is encased in. they can never know for sure. There will always be this bewilderment and doubt. Where did we come from? Where did everyone come from? Where did this universe come from? Why are there human beings here? They cannot answer this. They cannot answer it because there is no overriding objective. Because this is an event of chance. It's an event of that is born out of a cosmic accident. So they can't really identify any particular telos, any particular final cause for the universe. And so, therefore, both death is a mystery for them and a source of anxiety, and also beginnings are also a source of doubt and uncertainty. So everything is enshrouded in doubt and uncertainty because they can have no real handle on the situation because they're looking at it through these this particular interpretive position, which is born of total subjectivity, without any input from revelation. So it's all guesswork, it's all conjecture, it's all surmisal, it's all construal.
Yes, and uncertainty. But with the glasses of belief, so I want to get your comments on this too. Colin Hocam,
Through the glasses of belief, then clearly, you know, when the universe comes into existence, as it is coming into existence all of the time now, it comes into existence with order, and that order betokens wise purpose. That wise purpose betokens a whole constellation of names and attributes, which can be attributed only to one who owns them in an absolute way. And therefore, reason, aided by revelation, concludes that this universe is here in order to be a source of glorification of its owner and of its creator, and it is here also to show creation itself, you know, other than God and obviously human beings, who the creator is and what the divine purpose of creation is. So everything has a meaningful aspect when it's looked on through the lens of belief. Everything becomes full of wise purpose. There is a telos, there is an ultimate, you know, there is a final cause. There is no real uncertainty as such. So we can understand where we came from, we can understand where we're going, we can understand what we're doing while we're here.
No uncertainty, and it's
no, there's no uncertainty.
Miracle. And
yes.
in the opposite, it's not, you know, uncertainty, it's miracles, right? Wonderful miracles. And I remembered, you know, in the 25th word, there are some objections to the verses of the Quran. People say there's some, you know, doubts, uncertainty on this verse of the Quran, but Said Nursi shows, you know, not uncertain, but miracle, right? It's something you should be surprised and amazed, in the world when you look at it. Also, the universe and the past, future, sky, earth, the creation is all like that, not uncertainty, but when you look at it, it's miracle, and it gives you amazement.
I think when we really look at it in totality, I kind of see that all those six aspects, and I could not pinpoint each one of them, but I kind of see that, you know, is a description of human being in which they're saying, look, human is very complex creatures, that you cannot really just treat human like animal and give food and say, okay, think for today. So it's very important that what is time? What is your perception of time? You don't live in present time, you relate to the past and future. So the time aspect, how we perceive time, how we live in time, and how it differs from the other animals, I think that's one issue. That second things, it seems like it's space. So what is our perception of space? What is our perception of being, and how we relate ourselves to other beings? The very last one we talked, it's kind of, I see it's more cultural aspects in which that, you know, so that when you look at your life, you don't really look at just as a one person and with everything. So you live in a history. So there's whole human history and whole human experience behind you that shape your perception, shape your worldview, through which you look at the life, through which you live your life. So you're not disconnected from the culture. You're not disconnected from the history. Now, the question here is how Iman will change this, this perception. That's the part. That's why the comparison here, I think that the one thing is description of human being, who you are and how you live your life, how you perceive your life. And the other one is that how, when you perceive it through the Iman, how it will be, and when you perceive it through the non-belief, how it will be. So in this case, when he talks about, I think the back aspect, I kind of think it's all about the history, it's all about the culture, it's all about the human experience. Because I read it, I see it. In this case, I get affected by them. So they all affect so I, in a way that every day when I live my life is not same like yesterday. Why? Because now I live a new day based on all experience of the life until today. Even today, the program is going to change my whole perception, let's say, to a certain extent. So in this case, and after this talk, I look at differently. So I think the point here on the back aspect is all about how you look at the culture, look at the history from an historical perspective, and how when you look at through the Iman, that you see differently and it's going to affect you differently. That's I kind of feel that's also one message within this this aspect.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Thank you, Nejat Hojam. This is Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. We finished, Alhamdulillah, the front and back aspect. Talked all about. This is the end of our session. Inshallah, thank you all for joining. Colin Hojam, can you make dua, inshallah?
Inshallah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. May we have the inner vision to see our creation at the very highest magnitude of God's beautiful names and at the very highest resolution of God's beautiful attributes, inshallah.
Ameen. Inshallah, see you next week.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Nejat Hojam, for joining. Have a good week.
Thank you very much. You too.